High rates of homelessness aren't anything new in America, with about a 3% increase from 2018 to 2019. This has only gotten worse with the looming presence of the COVID-19 pandemic. This year, about 500,000 people remain homeless with the threat of lost jobs and rising rent holding a firm grasp on their lives. Stimulus checks have been available since early April 2020 in an attempt to make up for lost jobs or cut wages. However, they are not available to all despite their seeming inclusive criteria. The unhoused and housing insecure are one of the groups that are excluded from stimulus check distribution. Without an address, they cannot receive or deposit the check, as an address is required in the opening of a bank account.
The way society has had to shut down is not really conducive to any sort of homeless lifestyle. We saw a really poor execution of an emergency strategy for COVID within shelters, which led to effectively they were just overcrowded, not socially distanced, and with the way that the economy hit, there was actually more need rather than less at a time when there was less capacity.
Some services remained open throughout the pandemic to support individuals and families in need. Food distribution sites have always been important for the unhoused and low-income communities, but with COVID-19 threatening income, more people, specifically those of the middle class, have turned to these sites, putting pressure on them.
Even in the very beginning, since March, we had a huge increase to where our call center was overwhelmed, and other staff members, including myself, were able to assist with the call center and just take calls, schedule people, because it was just ringing off nonstop.
The kinds of numbers that we get on a weekly basis now are surpassing the amount that we would get normally during Thanksgiving, which is our busiest week of the year.
These food banks have also had to take precautions when coming to distribution and collection. Per CDC recommendation, distribution sites stagger staff hours, expand accessibility, and are rethinking distribution in some cases.
We're doing deliveries to people who are at higher risk of COVID or for whatever reason can't make it to our distribution sites. And so we've kind of expanded that through our community food rescue application that we use, and we have a system of volunteers that come pick up food from our 2 locations in the county.
They reach out into the community and help those who are not able to travel to food banks themselves. This has aided in tackling the disproportional effect that the pandemic has had on the unhoused, low-income communities. Even with expanded food accessibility, the threat of contracting the virus still stands. The threat is made even larger for those without proper housing. Rising rent and closed shops have created uncertainty when it comes to ensuring housing, and shelters do not always favor safety over capacity. Some organizations, like Street Sense Media, who employ the unhoused to distribute their staffer to newspaper, have fought to stay open to provide stable incomes.
There's definitely been an increase in temporary vendors or people that are completely new to the program. And demographically, I would say on the younger end. We work with about 130 active vendors. That's people that we are engaging with on a very consistent basis. Of the 130, the breakdown, I would imagine, would be probably 70% male, 30% female, around 80% African American, 15% white, 5% other.
Although Street Sense has remained open since the beginning of the pandemic, foot traffic has dwindled, limiting the amount of papers that vendors are able to sell.
The latest statistic we had of pre-COVID would put our vendors still below the poverty line, still not enough to live on. They vend the newspaper to the public for a suggested donation of $2. They are allowed to accept more than $2. They are not allowed to solicit for more than that, but we have found that a lot of people, most people even tend to give more than $2, and then they keep whatever that profit margin is.
Despite these donations from buyers, their paychecks are still considered below the poverty line. They need support, whether it be through volunteering or donations.
Students who are interested in continuing to volunteer with us, the home deliveries are a really great way to do that, and that's the way they could do it with their families as well.
For Blair, we are there every Friday from 11 to 1 p.m. That information is on the MCPS meals website, but basically every Friday we're at a number of sites and distributing those bags, which help supplement 2 dinner meals for a family of 4. And if there's more than a family of 4, then we'll give 2 bags. But that's something we give out every single weekend at your school. MANA has a distribution at Blair where we do our Food for Families program, and that's where we give monthly a box of produce, a box of shelf-stable foods, and a bag of meat when available.
These communities do need support through donations of resources and time, but also through exposure.
For a really long time, homelessness was an anonymized issue, and DC society at large has a very vested interest in keeping it an anonymized issue and keeping it so that you see homeless people, but you don't really look them in the eyes and you don't ask their name. But there are faces to all these people, and at the end of the day, if they're unhoused or if they're housed, they're still your neighbors. And I think that hopefully if these people become people through all the platforms that we have, rather than sort of anonymous people squatting on stoop corners, there will the level of personal responsibility that people in power and people with financial resources should feel to them will actually start to be realized. Like a lot of things, COVID has not created unequal systems, it's exposed them. These issues are not new issues. The fact that the homeless population has very unacceptably limited bathroom access, unacceptably limited Wi-Fi access, that has always existed. The fact that we have to be a mail room because they don't have permanent addresses for stuff to get sent to, all of that has always been the case. COVID has just made it all the more crucial because, homelessness and the work at Street Sense has always been a matter of life and death.